So the agenda for today is to do a full demo on how to prep our grants um, for creating a performance report, how to create a performance report, and then how to fill out narratives and submit the performance report to the GODAR for review. We are recording the session, and the session will be posted for any additional review that anybody needs. And then after we're done with the demo, we are going to open it up for questions. Does that sound good to everybody? Sweet. So I'm going to share my screen. Can everybody see my screen?
I can see it.
Awesome. So we're in the test environment, and we're just going to kind of run through real quick the things that we kind of have to have prepped in advance for the performance report, or before you create a performance report. So we should have our goals module filled out. I believe that staff did this. So this looks great. And this is going to factor into how our outcomes are calculated.
Jacob, sorry
yes.
to interrupt you really quick. Just wanted to mention, for those on the call, we also would like you to take a look at the goals module. Even though Vet's populated that for you, we do want to make sure that we are accurately representing what you have submitted for your goals. So please just double check before you submit your first report to make sure they are accurate. And if you have any concerns about them, please contact your GODAR and they'll let us know and we can look into it. Thank you. That's all. Go ahead, Jacob.
Thanks, Kate. Secondly, we're going to look at the budget, make sure that our planned budget should be filled out, and also our first quarter actuals we should fill out. So we've already gone ahead and pre-prepped that. Looking at personnel, we should have our personnel module filled out with the positions and also our employees per position, and then the quarter one percentage of time for all of our employees. So as you can see here, we've had employee for director, he filled the whole 100%, and 2 for accountant.
Hey, Jacob.
Yes.
Jacob, could you please zoom out and just concentrate on the Q1, because a lot of people in the chat are having difficulty reading your screen.
Gotcha.
Please.
Yeah. How does this look on Zoom for everybody?
You go zoom in a little bit more.
Ups?
Sorry, I just spoke for everyone. I did. I could zoom in. I think if you could actually zoom in on maybe if you get Q1, Q2, just really good, because there we go. Okay.
Cool. Gotcha. Sorry,
I don't know if is that good for everyone else. Let's see. We're still getting some hearts. Okay, that's good. So Jacob, can you go even zoom in just a little bit more? I'm still having a little. There we go. Okay, I think that's finally good for me. It looks like we've still got some. Okay, so I think we're all right. Appreciate it. And also for those of you on the call, if you're in Teams, you should be able also to zoom in on your personal screen. I believe by clicking Control, is it Control scroll up? I'm not sure, but yeah, there should be a way to do that for yourself as well. So thanks, Jake. Appreciate it.
Okay. So yeah, just checking to make sure that we've filled out our employee percentage of times for quarter one. So as you can see here, we're expecting this director position to have a full-time equivalent, 100%. And we had one employee that filled in the whole 100%. Whereas for this accountant position, we're only expecting 75%. And we've had 2 employees that filled in, one filled in 65, one filled in 10. And so they match up to 100. If there's any discrepancies, you'll be able to tell that from this total employee percentage of time difference. It'll show either a positive number, as in if we only had 65, it'll show a 10% difference compared to our position percentage of time. That's something to definitely check and make sure we have filled out before we create any performance reports. The participants module, we need to make sure that we've added all of the participants that we want to appear in the performance report And for each participant, their enrollments, their trainings, exit them if they need to be exited, etc. for all of our participants. Outcomes, we can always recalculate outcomes before, but outcomes will be automatically copied over into the performance report and calculated for the performance report when we create it. So we don't need to do anything with this. This module just gives you the ability to kind of check in on what outcomes is going to look like before we create the performance report. Demographics is really yet. So we'll go into performance reports, and as you can see, we have no performance reports created yet. We're going to create one for quarter one of 2024. So we'll just click create performance report. We select the program year, and we're going to do quarter one. That'll auto-populate your month. And then we're going to go ahead and click submit. Oh, I'm sorry. We do have now a narrative or a budget validation. So I'm missing a total actual award amount. So let's go ahead and fill that out real quick. That's 2024 in the budget. Believe this one is not quite up into prod yet, so you will not have to worry about that. We'll just say 10,000. Submit. And let's go back. So manage. We're going to create, go 2024, quarter one, auto-populates our month. We'll submit. And then we get this confirmation screen that our performance report has been successfully created. We can either close out and open up from that performance report list, or we can just click on this link to take us there. And I'll show you. We can also open from right here. So once we create a performance report, the way that this works is the performance reports take a snapshot of the grant at the time of creation. So as you can see, our goals have been all copied over. Same with our budget. We've got our Q1 inputs and all of our planned. Same with our participants. These are like frozen in time once we create it, so we won't be able to edit them directly from the performance report. That's why we want to double check and make sure we get all of our participants' goals, budget information in. The only part of the performance report that is editable once created is the narrative section. That's where we can give all of our achievements and activities, talk about the different scores on different categories. So you will need to complete the narrative before we can go ahead and submit it for review. So let's go ahead and manage the narrative. Input a basic service address. We're just going to say it's test drive and test. We've got to fill out achievements, activities, and then so the goal met, we can expand these and look at kind of our score here, but these don't require any like inputs, questions, or answers from us. The goal partially met, we do have questions, so we can see our score here and then say it's not a related or a continuing issue, underlying causes. Same with cost per placement. We can see again our score here, and we just need to fill out answers to these questions. Goal not met has the same questions minus, I'm so sorry, the projected timeline for aligning actual performance. So we'll go ahead and fill these out. And if we do select, if the score is related, we get a pop-up additional question as to what remediation activities have been previously attempted. Since we're in quarter one, there isn't going to be any remediation, so we're going to select no. And we're just going to input test for these. We do have whether our total percentage of time charged to each position matches the personnel time allocations. As we can see, we have a 0 difference and 75 total compared to 75 here and 100 compared to 100 here. So we're going to say, yes, it does match. And then we have to input how much funding we used in program year 1. We'll say 10,000 and it matches. We can go ahead and submit, and all of our answers are saved and recorded for the narratives. Once we do that, we can go to summary. We can tell that our validations have passed. Now, this is not going to be live for quarter one for you guys, but I assume from quarter 2 onwards, there's going to be a validation that checks that all of the fields and narratives have been filled out. It's just, it helps to make sure that we cut down on the number of performance reports that are maybe missing in answer to a question, and then, it's got to get sent back. But we can see that, all of our validations have passed. We've answered all the questions for all these sections. So that means that our report is ready to be submitted for review. We're going to do that from the summary page here with the submit to vet staff. We can click that, and then we have a quick checklist. I really recommend you go through and before you submit, double check these checklist items. So we've made sure that the narrative entries are accurate and complete. All this stuff. Once we say, yep, we've done everything, we can go ahead and click submit. We get a confirmation. Once it's submitted, it's locked and it's passed on to vet staff. So we're ready to go ahead and submit it. We'll click yes. Quick load. Once we submit it, we can see that it's changed to been submitted to vet staff. We can't edit it. So narratives is now locked down. We've lost this button to edit narratives. And it's now into the go to review process and upwards. The only other thing we might see on a performance report is if it gets returned back to a grantee, and you'll see like a returned here, and we'll have to recreate the performance report to address any review edits. That kind of goes through the main demo on what we need to set up first, how to create a performance report, how to fill out a narratives, and then how to get it into the submitted for review status. Do we have any questions? Yes, Andrea.
So what would happen if someone accidentally created a report and they say forgot to put their budget numbers in? What would happen then? It would have to be rejected and returned, or because it sounds like that's impossible.
So if we created a performance report with no budget information, we have a way to get around that without submitting it. And this is kind of the going into double checking things before we submit. We can always just go back here and create another report. Now, I've submitted this one, so it's not going to let me create another report since we have one in the submitted status. As you can see, we have this validation, something's already been submitted. So I would need that previous report to be returned before I can recreate one. But if you notice any data issues before submission, we can just go ahead and create another report after we make the edits on the grant record.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because I remember during the testing of it, I accidentally created a report and submitted it because I was just playing with the testing. And so we were trying to see like, can you reject it, return it? So once they returned the report back to me saying, you forgot to put in your numbers, it's rejected, then I can create a new report and add those numbers or whatever I did wrong.
Right. Yeah. So real quick.
Okay. No, I wanted to make sure that there was a solution to that. I'm hoping not to do that, but so
Definitely. So I just, the performance report we created, I just went ahead and returned it just so we can show this. So you can see here on the grant record that the status has changed to returned, and we can go ahead and create a new one for our quarter one, and it won't validate, and we'll just be able to make a new one.
Quick question, there's no way to edit the returned report without creating a new one?
Correct. There is currently no way to edit a returned report. Once it's returned, it's completely locked down, and it's still in the system. You can still view your narrative answers and view, you know, all of the stuff in the report, but it's just kept there for archival.
And quarter one, how are we going to deal with that with this reporting system? Because we were putting that in the narrative, how much we use from each period.
Jacob, I can jump in on this one. So yeah, just see that part about the how much you used for each in each year, that is still listed in the narrative. So you would put the amount that for like say like funding year 1 versus funding year 2. So that is still listed. And then you what is new for you and probably a little bit confusing is that there is you would report the combined total amount in your actual budget, in that budget sort of module that that Jacob has there. Yep. So your actual would be the total amount expended for the quarter. And then in the narrative module, there's a piece where you can show exactly how much was spent out of each account.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure thing.
Looks like Earl Lamar has his hand up. Second.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My question is similar to that. Now I'm still working with mine. I'm still putting in my my year of my PY23 in. And my question is, and I just heard you say about the budget's already in there, but did you put our old budget in there for our PY? I'm just gonna say PY23, or is it just the budget for PY24 that's in there? So how would the budgets match up? Do we have to go back and enter in our old budgets? And just a question, why was there not a system that was able to duplicate the work we already did a year ago? Was that not thought about, or?
I'm sorry, just 1 second.
I'll jump in on this one as well, Jacob. So as far as the budget goes, you are not required to. I believe we said that you could. So if I'm guessing are you a third year grantee or in your pop year 3?
I'm in my second year of my 3-year.
Okay, so for second year, so what you can do is you can take your what you submitted in your PY23 Q4 TPR. Correct. And simply just enter those amounts in actual. See what's there, and you can for each of the quarters, and that will display everything you need for. And then you can start fresh with PY24. So yep, that would be in yes, you do unfortunately still have to re-enter the data from PY23 here, but it is a one-time thing. For going forward after that, you won't have to re-enter.
Okay, it was kind of fast. I'm sorry, you
Yeah.
lost me.
So in the budget, if you wouldn't mind, Jacob, to go down to actual, and I'll talk about planned in a second. But so if you take your PY23 Q4 TPR and you look at the, what you had listed for actual direct costs and actual indirect, if you enter those amounts there, that's sufficient to complete that part of the budget for the previous program year. And that way you'll have all of PY23 represented. So that'll fill that part out. And then you can do the same thing for the planned portion as well. You can go, there's the planned budget piece in the TPR, you can enter that same information. And then, so what that'll do is if you in fact did have any leftover money, right? So in your case, sir, you said you were, you're a second year grantee. If you didn't spend all of your first year money there, the system will show that you have a carryover amount, and that will populate in the actual, and then you can, and then you can adjust your planned budget accordingly.
Okay, so my next question would be, so if there was a mistake made on that could kick back and we'd have to redo everything all over again, is my question.
Yeah, so correct. So hopefully not everything. So if there was an issue with your budget, what would happen is you would look at your go-to would talk to you and tell you what the issue was, and then you would make the change, not in here in the performance report, right? Because that would be locked down, right? That would be it would be
Correct.
in your live version, and then
Yeah.
once you made those changes, you would create a new performance report, but you wouldn't have to redo everything, right? Because it would just be the narrative that would need to be updated. All the other parts would still reflect what was there previously, unless you'd made changes to them too. But otherwise,
Okay.
that would all still be there.
All right, thank you.
Sure thing.
I'm sorry, okay, we started with Q1 of PY24. Do we have carryover from PY23 as far as our follow-up for the 8 quarters like we had in the past?
Could you repeat that? I'm sorry, I was tracking until I got, sorry, I wasn't sure if it was people or budget. So would you mind repeating that again?
People. Let's say
okay.
we're in our second year. So what happened to, I understand from a previous training that there's no carryover.
Right.
But we have people that we still have to monitor, correct?
Correct, and that's fine. So what you would do is you would enter their information as you from what you had from your PY23 TPR, and they're not exited, right? Because you're continuing to provide them services. So you would just continue to enter their services and training in VGRS as you would have in the TPR, and they would just show as a sort of a continued enrollment, so to speak.
Okay. So we would only enter the ones that was, we have to enter them all, even if we exited some, because we're still following up. Is that correct?
Correct. Right. Yes. All of PY23 would need to be entered, and then of course any that you enrolled in Q1 of PY24.
Thank you.
Sure.
Looks like we have a handout from James Auckland.
Oops, am I still muted?
Nope, we can hear you.
Okay, so let's say we noticed before, let's say we create a report and then we notice that we didn't have our budget quite right before we submit it. We'd have to create, we go back and make changes to the budget. We'd have to recreate the report.
Correct. So
okay. And what would happen to the other draft, that we hadn't submitted? Is just going to sit there in the queue forever?
Correct. It just sits in this performance reports list As you can see, we have 2 now, but yeah, it'll just kind of sit here. We don't have to do anything with it. It can stay in draft status and not be submitted.
Okay.
But you're exactly right. If we noticed an issue with like our actual budget, oh, this should have been 865, we can go back to our grant, update the budget, and say 865, submit it, and then we can go into reports.
And create another report.
Exactly. Yep, for the same quarter here.
Okay.
We submit, and then we'll go ahead and open that up, and you can see that it is now captured the new budget, 865.
Okay, so and then after one's submitted and then it's returned for an issue, you're saying that we won't have to update the narratives or anything, that they'll automatically screenshot on there, or we're gonna have to copy and paste from the draft that or the one we submitted that was returned? Are we gonna have to copy and paste those narratives into the new one before we submit it, or is it gonna automatic? Or are we just gonna have to make the changes that the donor wants to have changed and then submit?
Yeah, so you will have to copy and paste the narratives answers into the new performance report.
Okay, all right.
And the main reason for that is just because we can't like edit direct, like let's say they're going back to our previous example, we figure out that this later is wrong still after we've submitted it. We can't change this number without changing it on the grant itself, right? So we have to have that recreation of the performance report once we've changed it in the grant. It should hopefully not be too painful to copy and paste the answers over, but yeah, as of right now, that's how we have to do it.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thomas Salazar.
Yes. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. A new question now that I heard copy and paste. Can you copy and paste the old TPR to this, or do you need to actually input the information line by line?
In terms of TPR information, so you're saying like your goals and your budget and stuff like that?
Participants. No, the participants data. Sorry, it's because.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, that does have to be inputted participant by participant and enrollment by enrollment. Yes.
Excellent. Okay, good. And when I try to actually create my own performance report, and it's giving me an error message, and everything else is in there. Everything that you checked off, I've checked. So is there any reason other than data might be wrong in the budget or goals?
Do you by any chance have a specific error message that it's giving you?
It literally said error, and that's it. It's one word.
On creation. I don't know off the top of my head. Let's connect towards the end of the meeting, and maybe we can grab some screenshots and I can take a closer look at it for you.
That's great. Thank you.
Awesome. Do we have any more questions? We can go through any other demos on how to do stuff if that's a request as well. James?
Yeah, I just had one more quick question. At what point, after we've created a report and then we are going through and we're answering all of the field questions, and then we don't have time to complete that for the day, are we able to save that and then just take it up before we submit it as a finished report to the GOTR? Or meaning it'll just, we can, well, at what point can't we edit the report before we submit it? Is there a point that we have to recreate another one?
Yeah, so the narratives is the only thing you're going to be changing specifically on the performance report. We can kind of draft this. So like I can put in just the address, right? And click save. And I'm able to just kind of only input that, and then I can come back and input answers for achievements and activities later if I would like. The point at which you can no longer edit narratives is once we've submitted it for review to using the submit to vet staff button. At that point, the narratives also locks down, and then it's into, Goder plus higher levels to perform actions on it as they review.
Okay, so we can change the narratives up until the time we submit it. And the only time we would have to recreate a report and save one to draft and not submit is if then we had to make changes to the budgets and the goals or
participants.
Our participant. Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Well,
I didn't see where you actually saved. You was telling them we could save.
Oh, no worries. Yeah. So once we kind of go into the managed narrative, we're in here able to update. Before I just inputted only the service address. Let's say I'm working on we're working on an answer for achievements. I want to go and look at, some data in the grant. I can go ahead all the way down to the bottom and just hit submit here. And that will save anything that I've input so far. So working on an answer for achievements. And we can kind of like continuously save and draft these narratives as we go here. So I can go down and say, oh, yes. And then I can just click submit. And it'll save only that one answer. Or whatever I've input so far.
Okay.
Tobias. And then Wanda.
Yes, I just had a quick question. So if I notice that there's a discrepancy with the goals, and I get that corrected, well, while I wait for that to get corrected, I would not submit the report, right? I would just wait till I receive confirmation that the updates have been made.
Correct. And then once you get confirmation, you would have to create a new performance report, right? Because your goals are going to be snapshotted. We won't be able to change them, and we would want them to display the updated, whatever updates had to happen to the goals.
Now, if I had my current report in a draft, would that still need to be recreated, or?
Correct, it would be.
Okay.
It's
perfect. Thank you.
The data is snapshotted at time of creation versus like submitting it. Thanks. Wanda?
Me okay?
I can hear you.
So I just wanted to restate and make sure I understand. As we're going along and stating the narrative, that we can hit the submit button and it won't submit up the chain. It's just simply saving it, save button. So hit the submit, save.
Correct. Yeah. The submit button in the narratives form here isn't going to submit the narratives for review or anything. It's just saying I want to save any changes that I've made to the actual narratives themselves.
Once we complete everything, there is like a super submit.
Correct. It's not on the narratives. It's module itself. It's on this main summary where we can submit to vet staff. That's like the super submit of I'm submitting my narrative plus everything else. I'm submitting the whole report with all of the goals data, the budget data, the participant data, and my filled out narratives.
The update reporting period.
I'm sorry, you got a little quieter. I can't quite hear.
The button to the left of the staff update reporting period.
This is just a button that I have access to because
We don't have access to that. Okay.
right. Yeah, I'm in a elevated account, so I have access to a different button.
The last question is for clarification. Someone asked a question about entering PY20 budget data, and I was a little confused. I only see PY20 as my first field.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
The PY23 budget data. Where does that get entered into?
Oh, so this report that I'm currently on, it begins in 2024. So our first year is a 2024. If your grant began with the initial year is PY 2023, you'll see the PY 2023 here.
Oh, okay.
And then you would be filling out PY 2024, which would be your second program year in the period of performance, and you'd be filling out this column here.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's different. I have two. I have one that's the first. This is the year of the grant, and then the other grant second year.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Yep. So it'll look a little different between the two.
Okay.
Thanks. Dr. Chambers. Oh, sorry. Tobias had his hand first. I missed the order there.
Oh, sorry, that was from earlier.
Oh, no worries. Perfect. Dr. Chambers.
Yes. If we have more than one person working on this report, let's say our supervisory case manager is putting in all the participant data and all of that, and then I have to come back and do the narrative and the budgets and things like that. Can we both be working in this and then I'd be the one to submit, or is it the person? Does it matter?
It does not. You can have multiple people working on different parts of it. The only thing I would say is, again, make sure that you coordinate on doing any goals, budget, participant updates to the grant first. And then once you're both settled, then create your performance report. You can both work on the narrative together, and then either one can go ahead and submit it for review.
And I know I asked this question earlier, but I wanted to make sure I'm clear. We had to do 2 TPRs in the past when we had more than one period of grant year. So when we were doing the follow-up, we had a TPR for that, and then what we were doing for the new program year had another TPR. So with this reporting system, everything's included here?
Correct. Yeah, it should be just one report. For
one report, and we don't have to have a narrative for the previous program year. Let's say PY23, was that we're in the second year also. So is that a narrative for PY24, or do we have to have a narrative for both?
No, you just need the narrative for one, and the reason is, let me try and find a good example of this real quick. In the narrative, we have, let's see if I can make a report real quick. I don't know if budget is filled out on this one or not. Let's see. Dang it. Kat, by any chance, do you have a good 2023 grant that we can look at in test that has budget filled out? We can make a report. I'm going to take that as a no. Let's just fill out this budget real super quick. I just want to show you because like you're talking about the exits and stuff, that stuff is going to appear um in the narratives as part of the scores section. You'll have like a goal for, you know, I don't remember what the measures are called, but like your second quarter after exit measures or your fourth quarter after exit measures. And so that's kind of lumped into just the one report where we don't have to submit two. It's just all part of this one section. I can go ahead and make the budget if you'd like to take a look at it, or we can keep going.
I'll
Yeah.
just jump in quickly there, Jacob. So essentially, that's you are on the right track, Jacob. Essentially, what we did is we were finally able to make it so that the parts that you had to complete in that follow-up TPR that were specifically related to, I believe it was Q5 through Q8, we were able to incorporate those into the narrative for that you were already doing for Q4 or I'm sorry, Q1 through Q4. So we were just able to take those parts and combine them. So you'll notice when you do your PY24 Q3 report, what you used to have to do was, also do your PY23, right? What was it? 7. So, right. So that would be you'd have to like update your employment rate, fourth quarter after exit, all that good stuff. That's still there. You'll see it, but it'll just be included within that PY24 narrative. So you are still reporting on those things, but it doesn't, we don't separate them out like we used to. It's all because it's all being submitted under as of the Q1 reporting period.
Let's see. I'm pretty close now to being able to show it. So as you can see, we have our second quarter after exit and fourth quarter after exit, like measures in the narrative. And those will speak to it. Dr. Chambers, you still have your hand up. Any additional questions?
Sorry about that, Mr. earlier.
Oh, no worries. Tony.
Yes. I got a couple of questions. You said that there was going to be no validation for the narrative in the one, but they would be there Q2 and beyond. So what tools do we have other than eyeballs to, for make sure that our Q1 validations data is good?
Yeah, you're exactly right. For now, it's eyeballs, and I would just say double check, triple check that you fill out all the parts of the narrative. Hit the service address, achievements, activities. Make sure you fill out the goal partially met, goal not met questions for each one. Each one of these sections has questions to it, right? Unfortunately, stuff goes through testing, and it's not quite there yet for this nice little validation on the narrative, but for the second quarter it'll be there, and you'll have this to be able to look at and say, oh hey, I'm missing activities, I'm missing all this stuff in goal partially met.
Okay, all right, I have another question.
Yes.
For PY23 participants, so PY23 participants that were placed and any PY23 participants that the grantee desires to carry over to the next funding year, those folks should be on the PY24 Q1 participant list.
I'm sorry, so participants that began in PY 2023 are still getting services, you're saying?
Yes, yeah, any, we're using the old carryover term, that are still receiving services. They weren't exited, but they're still being worked. Those participants and participants that were placed and are in the follow-up mode. All of those participants should be in the Q1, PY24 Q1 list of participants.
Yes.
Along with any new enrollees since July 1st.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. I'm good. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks. Looks like Earl and then Alyssa.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I have a question. It seems like this my take, there's a lot of, uncertainty, at least from my part there is. And I've been doing this for quite some time now, over I'd say 5 years, going on 6 years, and I'm sort of confused on a lot of things as well. Is there going to be some type of grace period? Because if you're stating, like, I've been working on this for quite some time and just inputting each line for line from the old TPR TPNs, if there was to be a mistake, are you saying we would have to like you're saying if it gets kicked back, you have to start over from ground zero? So is there going to be some type of grace period to re-enter every single person again by doing this?
Yeah, so you won't have to re-enter all your participants again. Specifically, what you'll have to re-enter is the narrative. The participants are all saved on the grant record itself, so you won't have to redo all of those.
Okay, so even the ones for PY23 and moving forward PY24.
Correct. Yeah, they're all saved on the grant record. They won't
So
go away or anything.
So that part is a one-time thing.
Correct.
Entering everything in from the old TPR TPNs, the TPRs for PY23. That's a one-time thing.
Right. Yep.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you. But will there be a grace period as well? Like if your report does get kicked back?
I believe that's more of a GODAR specific state by state.
Okay.
Would you agree with that?
You are correct. Yes. Please speak to your GODAR about that, and yeah, we'll get back to you.
Thank you.
Alyssa. Looks like you're still muted. There you go.
You can hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, hi.
Okay.
So I'm currently, putting all the data from the PY23 TPR spreadsheet over into VGRS, all the participant data. And on the TPR spreadsheet, the data point for the number of weeks in the last 6 months that they've been unemployed, and then how many of those, weeks were under the living wage. So now the data that Vigorous is asking is the number of days, not weeks, number of days within the last 90 days. So that's like half the time that we used to, record data. How are we supposed to, because those data points don't match anymore. There's been a total change. So how am I supposed to copy, over data for that?
I'll jump in on this one, Jacob. Yes, that is a good catch. There was a change in mostly because the recognition that it's the previous one was asking for a lot more time than was what we thought was reasonable. So we went to that 90-day period. So essentially, if you can convert what you entered in the TPR, so essentially if you had entered, 9 weeks or something, or just go ahead and convert that to a day, and that's what you can enter into VGRS.
That's kind of difficult to do because you're, especially if somebody was unemployed but not, consecutively, it might have been like several jumps in periods of time in which they were, unemployed, and then trying to figure out on what side, of those 6 months previously that happened. So trying to go over a year ago into data for that is like nearly impossible. I mean, because that was not the data that we were collecting back then, you know, and didn't know in the future that we would have to, you know,
Right.
do everything in days versus weeks, you know. So that's very difficult.
So understood. So when what we can do is if you're your best guess, it's we're totally understand that it's not easy to do with the information that you have at the time. So enter your best estimate or guess to align with what you have, but we understand that they might not be exact, and that's okay.
Okay, so it's just a complete guess, basically. Okay.
It often is
All
with
right.
many of these things. Yeah, understood. But yes, that's fine.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Sure thing.
Any other questions? Anything we want to take a look at again? Yep, James.
I just want to clarify that there's nowhere on the report that we are going to have to answer to the percentage of AJC co-enrollments that we have.
Don't believe that is a question on the narratives, no.
Okay, then I guess we don't need the filter that we would like to have. We're trying to filter out who is has co-enrollment and who doesn't. We typically like to see something like that anyway, though, where we could without having to go through each file to see if they to update whether or not they have a co-enrollment status.
So you actually can see that in the table view. So I think if you wouldn't mind, Jacob, showing how that filter function works. Thank you.
I don't remember which one it's in. Enrollments, maybe? Aha, here it is. So we have, as you can see, we're in a participant list, and we're in the tabular view of the enrollment section, and we have this declined co-enrollment AJC filter along with date co-enrolled. So you can use this to kind of narrow down like these guys all declined co-enrollment. This guy said, no, I'm not going to decline, and here's the date he co-enrolled. So that will give you kind of a quicker breakdown where you can see it. Doesn't look like we have an actual filter for that. But you can just use the columns.
And Jacob, I will just jump in quickly. There has been a change in policy. Yeah, there's some comments in the chat about it. So this field will likely look a little bit different in a few quarters where we are going to make the change. I believe we're no longer going to be tracking the exact AJC date, and it'll be more like a checkbox like you've seen in some of the other co-enrollment items. So we will let you know what those look like when we get there, but we're just catching up to the policy. So the system takes a little bit of time to change, but that will look a little bit different in the future.
Yes, Georgita?
Georgetta, yes.
Georgetta,
I had a question as it relates to the walkthrough, what you just did. And I know that earlier you mentioned screenshots. Is there an additional tool?
An additional tool for what exactly? I'm sorry. I'm sorry, an additional tool for like the walkthrough of how to create a performance report and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, outside of this recording, similarly to what you already have as it relates to step-by-step on how to enter participants, how to complete enrollments, something similar to that platform that you already had.
Yeah, there's all of the training videos that should all be posted, correct, Kate? That we
Yes.
went through much more actually in depth than we even did today on the whole system in general, how to input participants and enrollments, goals, budget, how the performance reports work, how outcomes works, all that kind of stuff.
And that is the link that you attached earlier today, correct?
I'm sure somebody posted it in the chat. Yeah.
Yeah, someone posted a
Yep.
link earlier today, which was very helpful.
Yeah. So you should be able to see all the videos that have been training related in that one
Excellent.
spot. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Tony?
Yes. This is the question that doesn't necessarily have to do with the actual performance report, but I wanted to go back to let's see, personnel, grant personnel. All right, so we as the GOTR, we're able to we enter the positions, but the grantee is supposed to put their employees' names and percentage of time. Okay. Well, I knew I was doing that several weeks ago, and for some reason, one of my grants, I was able. The grantee has like 5 or 6 positions. Now, for some reason that it seemed like the system wouldn't let me go any further than 4 positions. When I tried to put the 4th one in, it's sort of like it never registered. I would, add a position and submit and go back, and it would still be only 3 positions there. The 4th one, I couldn't create the 4th and the 5th. I don't know. I haven't been back to look at it in a couple of weeks. Maybe I need to try it again to see if I have better luck.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm running a quick test right now because I'm curious, and we can do it fast.
Well, I did another grantee that had like 4 or 5 positions too, and I was able to do it with one grant, but wasn't able to do it with another grant. So I don't know.
Gotcha. Yeah. Let's look here. Yeah, it looks like we're registering 6 on this one. I would say just go back in and try adding those last positions, and then if you run into any additional issues, definitely email the VGRS help email address, and we can get you additional technical support there. Dennis has his hand up.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
All right, great. Just to piggyback on what Tony was having problems with entering that 4th position. I had that same issue and I leveled it up, and I think Kat was the one that squared me away on that. I don't know whether that's just an anomaly or what, but I know I had that issue as well. But my question that I want to ask is about the participants that the grantee is entering right now. I'm seeing, like, in one particular grant that there's not, I mean, they're putting participants in, but they're showing that there's been no services provided to those participants. So they're getting flagged on that. I mean, are they going to have to address that and correct that issue before they level these up in a report for us? Or should we be addressing that now as we see it?
The flag is there to help people identify participants that need actions taken on them. So like if they're in there and they have more than 90 days of enrollment in activity and they don't have anything to add, like training or service wise, I believe that the policy is they should be exited at that point, correct, Kate?
Yeah, that's what I thought as well. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll jump in on that one,
yeah.
Jacob, just real quick. Yeah, so essentially, yeah, and I totally get what you're saying, Dennis. So what we found is if you see that so anything for Q1, right, that for PY24 Q1 where you've got a participant, but with like, so under currently enrolled, there'd be a no. And for whatever reason that like they're not showing up as that when that means that for whatever reason the enrollment did not take, and so you would want to make sure that if they're trying to have that person count as an enrollment, that is listed.
Okay.
If in some cases for the days of enrollment inactivity, that's exactly it. If you've got like say 200 listed there or something like that, that's exactly it, where you go, okay, maybe that means that they just haven't updated the the training or services record, and you'd want to go in and confirm that. But yeah, that's the idea.
All right. Well, I'll be on the watch for that come reporting time, but I'll reach out to that grantee that I'm seeing that issue with in this week. Then thank you very much.
Sure thing. But I will just quickly jump on that too and say that the new VPL that I believe is linked somewhere here in the chat has a note about VGRS data entry. So in the past, I know many people kind of would wait for several months to enter data, and I think the attempt now is to kind of have that be a little bit more of a recurring process. So, and then just another thing to keep in mind to help have that enrollment inactivity piece monitored. And I believe we're at 3 minutes over, so I'll turn it over to you, Jacob, to kind of wrap up.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining for the performance report Q&A technical assistance session. Any more questions, bugs you run into, etc., can always be emailed to the VGRS contact email. You can find it here at the bottom of the homepage under Contact Us.